Happy Tuesday. So here is this morning's bell work. Hopefully you had some time to work on it. Number one is from yesterday's notes that we did. You have your X and your Y, and you need to plug them into our equation where our X and Y are. So they want to know, is 2 times 4 minus 3 going to equal 1? Well, 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5. So does 1 equal 5? No. So it is not a solution. Just ran out of space. Okay, the next one, Pythagorean theorem. Remember, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then we have our a and our b. So what's 5 squared plus 12 squared equal to c squared? Plus 25. 25 plus 144 makes 169. And the opposite of squaring is a square root. Okay, and the square root of 169 is 13. So C equals 13. All right, and our last one, what's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. Okay, I had $2 and I spent 6. So I am in the hole by $4. And then we have fraction. We need to get rid of that coefficient with keep, change, flip. Okay. And then multiply across. So we get a negative 16 thirds, but because we're big kids now, we need to turn that into a mixed number. So a negative 5 and 1/3 is your correct answer. Okay. Alrighty, so let's go on to today's notes. You're using your textbook. You need page 171. The first thing we start with is talking about Marcus and songs that he's downloading from the internet. Okay. We need to compare the change in the number of songs, or Y, to the time changed in X. So what we call that is our change in Y over our change in X. The little triangles, delta, another fancy way of putting change. So each time we look here, we are always increasing by 2's. Okay, and then we look at our X, we're always increasing by 1. So that's our ratio. And to put it into a word form, we would say 2 songs per minute. Whenever you have constant rate of change, also known as CROC, you should always have the word per in there because it means division, and constant rate of change is normally a division problem. All right, we need to use what we have and graph that data that they gave us. Now, if you notice, they gave us our X and our Y. Well, whenever you graph, you put your X's on the X-axis, so that's our time of minutes. And then we have our Y, which is our songs. How many songs did they download? Okay. At 0 minutes, he had 0 songs. 1 minute was 2 songs. 2 minutes was 4. 3 minutes was 6. 4 minutes was 8. And because this is a linear line, okay, that means it has a constant rate of change. Ooh, that did not make the line I thought it was going to make. There we go. That's what I want. So going from here, and I go through all those points, I can even predict later on what he would have at 5 minutes. Okay. It says also describe. So each time we rise 2 songs, and we run 1 minute. That's to get you ready for tomorrow when we start talking about slope, which is rise over run. All right, going to the next page. Here they show us about linear relationships. When we have a table, if it has a constant rate of change, it is linear. Linear also means that it is a straight line if it is graphed. Okay, here's an example of a table. They showed whenever you decrease, that's considered a negative number. When you find your constant rate of change as a fraction, look to see if you can reduce it. So here they reduced it down to a negative $10 per transaction. All right, so with our got it's, we are looking for two things. Is it linear? And if so, what's the CROC, the constant rate of change? So I look at my x's, which is always on the left, and y is always on the right. And we are looking to see, do we always change the same way? Well, the x is always going up by 5s. Now I look at my y. How am I increased the first time? I dropped 5, so that means it's a negative 5. Then the next one did not drop 5, it dropped 4. And the next one dropped 4. So we have two of them are the same, but to be a constant rate of change and linear, they all have to be the same. So for A, we would say not linear, due to the fact, because we should always justify our reasoning, negative 5 over 5 does not equal negative 4 over 5. They do not reduce to make negative 1. Now let's look at our table, our graph. Graphs you need to pay attention to your numbers. They play a key role of what your CROC would actually be. Okay, so remember it's always your change in y over your change in x. So I look, I dropped 2 lines, but those 2 lines represent a 20. So it's a negative 20. And then I run from 8 to 16. So that means that's actually an 8. And then I want to look at the next line. Did I do the same thing going from one ordered pair to the other ordered pair? Do those actually equal each other? Yes. So then it is linear. And the CROC is negative 28, which technically, let's put that as a decimal. A negative 2.5 minutes per volunteer. Okay, normally we don't talk about minutes and fractions. You normally want it as a decimal whole number type situation. All right, the next page is going over talking about what's proportional and linear. Okay, remember back in 7th grade, to be proportional, you had to go through the origin and you had to be a straight line. Well, linear is kind of the same thing. You have to be a straight line, but you don't have to go through the origin. So that's what we're kind of looking for on these today. So the first example, we have a table, but notice it does not go through the origin. Okay, so that tells us it's not quite proportional, but we have a constant rate of change. Our CROC is 9/5. So it is linear. Okay, so it is a linear relationship, but it is not proportional. Okay, it can be linear, but doesn't mean it's going to be proportional. All right, so now we have on the next page our table to figure out over here. They want us to compare the mass of kilograms to the weight in pounds. So here's our y, here's our x. So each time I look, it increases by 9 each time. So 9, and then each time we increase by 20. So then we need to think, if I go backwards, what's 20 minus 20? 0. What's 9 minus 9? 0. So there's our origin. So we would say, yes, it is a proportional linear relationship. Proportional linear relationship. And our crock is 9/20, or in other words, as that's our ratio, we would put 9 kilograms per 20 pounds. Alrighty, kind of practice. Go ahead, if you want, pause this video, see if you can figure out number 1 and 2. Compare the table for number 1 and then compare the graph for number 2. Okay, hopefully you've paused. So now let's look. Number 1 is yes. Okay, and our crock is 6/5 or 1 1/5 cans per chair of paint. Okay, now the graph one could be tricky. It doesn't look linear, so you actually have to compare, and you'll find out is yes. The first one dropped 500 and it ran 2 minutes. The second one dropped a full 1,000 and it ran 4 minutes. Technically, if I was to come through here and go from this dot to that dot, it does make a straight line. So it is actually linear. Okay. Alrighty. Your homework is page 175. You're doing problems 1 through 6. The bottom 3 you are not doing. And then on the back side, you are doing 10 through 13. Okay. Number 10, don't overthink it. So you can fill it, make a little table. It does not have an exact correct answer. It is your representation. Okay, so don't overthink it. But you make sure you do all 10 problems. Okay, and then have it ready to turn in tomorrow. Have a good day.